Imagine you log into a massive fantasy game. Right. You're expecting to play the all-powerful, god-slaying chosen one, but instead, you find out your character is essentially a deeply stressed, chronically underpaid park ranger.
Yeah, park ranger.
Exactly. I mean, that is the massive, entirely unprecedented gamble ArenaNet just announced for Guild Wars 3. And if you've been anywhere near a gaming forum this week, you know the entire community is just completely scrambling to process this.
It's a radical departure from everything we've come to expect in the MMO genre, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
You look at the official developer press releases and the narrative director video logs, and they are essentially rewriting the rulebook on how to build a fantasy sequel here.
Right.
Because the stakes aren't escalating into some cosmic, universe-ending threat. They're shrinking down into something hyper-local, deeply political, and just incredibly grounded.
And that shrinking of the stakes has caused an absolute earthquake online. I mean, I've been practically living on the subreddits all morning, and the whiplash is real.
I can only imagine.
Oh, it's crazy. Half the internet is throwing a parade, and the other half is having a very public panic attack. So, we need to figure out exactly what is happening with this new setting of Ancient Orr.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We've got this mission for the deep dive today.
Yeah.
To look past the glossy PR trailers, dig into these incredibly dense lore documents you've been poring over, and just figure out what this actually means for you as a player.
I think the best place to start is the most jarring aspect of the announcement, which is the visual setting itself.
The lush green stuff.
Right, exactly. The trailer transitions us into a landscape that veteran players of the franchise are intimately familiar with, but it looks entirely fundamentally wrong. We're stepping into a prequel setting that takes place over a millennium before the original 2005 game.
Wait, so let's anchor that timeline for everyone listening. When exactly are we?
We are specifically in the years between 148 before the Exodus.
Okay.
This is the golden age of Ancient Orr. So the trailer visuals show this incredibly lush, verdant wilderness. It is just teeming with raw, untamed magic. You see these pristine, vibrant forests and
floating city.
Yes. Floating majestically above the clouds is the completely uncorrupted city of Ara. It acts as this physical, shining beacon visible from across the entire region. I mean, it's an era where the 6 human gods literally walk the earth.
And for veteran players, this is just completely mind-bending. I mean, it's like finding out your grumpy, terrifying, flesh-eating zombie neighbor used to be a vibrant, glowing supermodel.
That's exactly what it's like.
Because if you look at the immediate internet confusion, and this is a huge theme on Reddit right now, casual onlookers who only know Guild Wars 2 from, like, Twitch clips, they're flooding the forums asking, wait a minute, isn't Orr that toxic, rotting zombie wasteland? Like, where are the zombies?
Right, and that is exactly where the diehard lore nerds are aggressively correcting everyone in the comments.
Doing what they do best.
Exactly, and they're entirely right to do so. The Orr that players know from Guild Wars 2 is a drowned, rotting, coral-encrusted nightmare.
Yeah, it's gross.
It was violently raised from the ocean depths by the undead elder dragon Zhaitan. But in this new Guild Wars 3 timeline, Zhaitan is currently taking a 1,000-year nap deep under the ocean.
So he's just down there snoozing, like completely out of the picture.
Essentially, yes. In the lore, elder dragons are more like forces of nature than traditional villains. They wake up, consume the world's magic, and then go back to sleep to digest it over millennia.
Right.
So right now, the elder dragon is completely dormant. That means there's no death-aspected necrotic energy leaking into the soil. The continent above is a thriving paradise filled with just raw, beautiful nature and divine architecture.
But the deeper you dig into these developer narrative documents, the more you realize that this pristine, glowing utopia is, it's actually a total facade.
Oh, excellent.
The reality of living in this beautiful paradise is incredibly grim. Which brings us to the socio-political reality of the game. What is actually going on beneath the surface of this golden age?
Well, we have to look at a direct quote from the studio narrative director, Bobby Stein. He confirmed that this prequel era is defined by rising tensions.
Oh.
This is a society where magic is severely restricted. It's being aggressively hoarded by an opaque bureaucratic body known as the High Council, acting on behalf of the 6 gods. They maintain a strict, iron-fisted monopoly on magical empowerment.
So it's like a corporate cartel artificially restricting the diamond supply to keep prices astronomical, but, instead of diamonds, it's literal magic.
That is the perfect analogy. It's not a natural right, it's a state-sanctioned privilege.
Wow.
The High Council enforces this by tightly controlling institutional access to spells and the ley lines that power them. If you aren't part of the elite living up in that floating city of Era, you're left fighting over the scraps. This artificial scarcity creates massive societal inequality. It's a powder keg. And if we connect this to the broader history of the franchise, this bureaucratic hoarding is the literal spark that ignites the original Guild Wars.
Right. The titular wars didn't happen because players just felt like fighting for the fun of it.
Exactly. The wars happened because the societal demand for magic vastly outstripped the High Council's willingness to supply it. People eventually started fighting desperate, bloody resource wars just to get access to basic magical utilities.
Which explains why the role you take on as a player is so radically different. And, I mean, this is the part that is making Reddit absolutely lose its collective mind with joy.
Oh yeah, they love this part.
They really do. I want to quote some casual player banter directly from the subreddits right now, because the relief is just palpable. People are posting things like, "Thank God I don't have to be the omnipotent commander anymore. Please just let me clear rats out of a cellar or wrangle some local cattle on the Orient frontier. Let me be a nobody again."
It's hilarious.
Right. They are absolutely thrilled that the Chosen One trope is dead.
It's a massive relief for a lot of players who felt the narrative scale of modern MMOs had just gotten far too bloated. You aren't a demigod in this game. You join an organization called the Order of the Veil, making you a Veil Warden.
Which goes back to that exhausted park ranger idea I mentioned at the start. So what does a Veil Warden actually do?
So official sources describe the Order of the Veil as the oldest guild in Orr. They are dedicated to protecting the frontier and safeguarding these primal nature entities known as the Veil Spirits.
Okay.
But the developer logs explicitly state that this guild is in steep, tragic decline.
Of course they are.
Right. They're severely overstretched, chronically underfunded, and they're lapsing in their duties purely out of sheer, overwhelming exhaustion. They're down in the mud, trying to hold the line and manage local resource scarcity, while the core of society sits comfortably in the floating city above them.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second here. Because if you look at this critically, you are playing a chronically underfunded, exhausted frontier worker dealing with extreme local resource scarcity, and you've got out-of-touch bureaucrats hoarding all the wealth. I mean, isn't that just everyday life for half the people listening to this right now?
Right.
Do you really want to log in after a long day of work just to simulate being an underpaid contractor?
It's a very valid question, but this is where narrative stakes become so important. A grounded, gritty struggle against bureaucratic hoarding creates far more compelling, relatable tension than, say, fighting a world-ending dragon.
Yeah, yes, that's true.
When the stakes are global extinction, the human element gets lost. You can't really wrap your head around everyone dying. But treating high fantasy superheroism for nuanced, politically charged frontier fiction...
That's more personal.
Exactly. That makes every choice, every resource, and every local alliance feel vital. You understand exactly why the farmer needs his crops protected from magical anomalies, because you know the High Council isn't going to help him.
And because the High Council is hoarding all that traditional magic, it forces the player to find an alternative just to survive, which introduces the coolest mechanical pivot in the game, the Seekers.
Right. Because the Veil Wardens can't access the state-sanctioned magic, they rely on an older primal magic that predates the gods themselves. They bond with the Veil spirits, which physically manifest as Seeker mounts.
But these aren't just like horses you ride from point A to point B.
Not at all. A Seeker is a direct, personal conduit to untamed magic. It allows the player to completely bypass the High Council's monopoly. It's this brilliant narrative loophole. You use primal nature to fight bureaucratic overreach, and that directly dictates how you navigate the game world.
Which perfectly bridges us to the massive mechanical shift, because the way you move through this world with your Seeker mount is causing some intense, highly polarized reactions online.
I've seen some of the threads.
Yeah, if you look at the MORPG subreddit right now, people are having absolute Vietnam flashbacks to old, frustrating map designs.
ArenaNet has promised that the physical map design of Ancient Orr is a complete departure from the genre standard.
Right.
Instead of sprawling, empty, flat continents where you just run in a straight line for 10 minutes, the map is designed to be highly layered, intensely vertical, and incredibly dense, with significantly fewer loading screens.
And that verticality is exactly what's tearing the community apart.
Yeah.
I mean, even people who haven't touched a Guild Wars game in 10 years are jumping into the threads just to argue about this.
Really?
Oh yeah, half the internet is celebrating, saying, yes, this layered design is the future of MMO movement, finally some innovation. While the other half is expressing pure map navigation anxiety.
Yeah, the maze factor.
Exactly. I'm seeing quotes like, oh God, I'm going to get lost in a giant 3D tree for 3 hours just trying to find a basic merchant.
And look, I completely understand the anxiety. Historically, verticality in MMOs has been synonymous with horrible camera angles and confusing mini-maps.
It's the worst.
But what we need to focus on is why ArenaNet is building the world this way. They aren't just making tall trees to frustrate you. The map is built to serve a brand new physics-based action combat system.
Okay, stop right there, because this is the biggest technical red flag for the skeptics online. Physics-based combat in a massively multiplayer game.
It's ambitious.
How does that actually work without massive server lag? If 50 people are jumping off a cliff at the same time, usually the server just crashes, or you rubber band back to where you started.
It's a massive technical hurdle, absolutely, but they are directly linking traversal to combat efficacy.
Okay, what does that mean?
The developer documents explain that momentum from movement like gliding, wall running, or leaping off high structures with your seeker mount translates directly into mathematical damage output.
Whoa.
Yeah, if you build up kinetic energy by diving off a canopy and striking an enemy, the game's physics engine calculates that momentum into a massive damage spike. You're literally rewarded for using the vertical environment as a weapon.
But how do they calculate that without the server just, melting down?
Well, traditional MMOs rely on server-side authority, meaning the server has to agree on exactly where you are before your attack registers. That's what causes the rubber banding.
Right.
To make momentum combat work, ArenaNet is reportedly implementing a hybrid client-side prediction model specifically tuned for this physics engine.
Okay.
They're drastically increasing the server tick rates so the game can calculate your velocity, trajectory, and impact locally on your machine in real time and then instantly verify it with the server. They had to completely overhaul their underlying engine to make the math keep up with the movement.
Which brings up the second massive technical hurdle, and arguably the bigger one for the average player. They announced this game is launching simultaneously on PC and PlayStation 5.
Yes, they did.
So picture this. You're sitting on your couch, you got a PS5 controller in your hands,
Yeah.
you're wall running up a tower, backflipping off it, and falling at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
How on earth do you actually target a specific enemy with a joystick?
It sounds impossible.
Right. The Reddit tinfoil hats are terrified that navigating a dense 3D space at high speeds on a controller is going to be an absolute disaster.
The controller integration is actually the exact reason the combat system is being overhauled. The dual input requirement, meaning the game must play flawlessly on both a keyboard and a console controller, forces a completely different design philosophy.
Makes sense.
In older MMOs, you had these bloated hotbars with 40 different skill buttons. You simply cannot map 40 buttons to a PlayStation controller while also managing a 3D camera.
No, you need a third hand just to cast a healing spell.
Exactly. So this limitation forces the developers to create a highly streamlined reactive skill system. Instead of tabbing through targets and pressing a sequence of numbers, the game uses a soft lock targeting system based on your camera trajectory and momentum.
Okay, so it's less clicking, more aiming.
Right. It's going to feel much more like a modern single-player action RPG think of recent massive open-world adventure games rather than a traditional MMO. If they can successfully pull off this marriage of environmental traversal and momentum-based combat on a controller, they aren't just making a new game. They're potentially revolutionizing how the entire MMO genre controls.
I mean, that is a colossal if. The ambition is staggering, but the execution has to be flawless.
It does.
So, let's pull back and summarize what this all means for you, the player, jumping into this universe. Guild Wars 3 is fundamentally a massive tonal and mechanical reset. You're trading cosmic, world-ending dragons for gritty, politically charged resource wars over access to magic.
Which is a huge shift.
Massive. You're trading static, tap-target combat for momentum-based physics and intense vertical exploration. And it is all set against the backdrop of this beautiful, golden age utopia that veteran players tragically know is completely doomed to sink to the bottom of the ocean.
The dramatic irony baked into the setting is phenomenal. You are fighting tooth and nail to save a society, to protect these frontier farmers, and to challenge this high council. All while knowing that millennium later, This entire continent will be nothing but a drowned, rotting ruin.
It's wonderfully depressing. But before we wrap up this deep dive, we have to talk about the business side of this announcement. Because normally, when an MMO announces a full-blown sequel, the player base of the current game absolutely riots.
They usually feel completely betrayed.
Yeah, they feel like all their thousands of hours of progress are just being erased. But the internet hasn't revolted this time. ArenaNet deployed some very smart consumer goodwill here.
They played the community management side of this perfectly. First, they explicitly confirmed there will be no mandatory subscription fees and absolutely no predatory battle passes.
Which instantly cooled the temperature in the room.
Totally. But more importantly, they outlined a very detailed 18-month roadmap for the current game, Guild Wars 2.
Right, so they aren't just abandoning ship.
Not at all. They're committing to massive engine-level updates to future-proof the 2012 game. But the real genius is the introduction of Hall of Monuments 2.0.
How exactly does that bridge the gap for players? Like, mechanically?
It's a cross-game progression system. Certain achievements, titles, and legendary items you unlock in the old game will grant you exclusive ancestral rewards and cosmetics in the new game. It creates a physical, rewarding link between the two titles.
So they're basically telling players, keep logging into the old game, your time is still incredibly valuable and it's going to pay off in the sequel.
Exactly.
I mean, that's practically unheard of in modern live service games, and it completely neutralized the usual panic.
It validates the player's historical investment rather than discarding it.
It really does. But we absolutely cannot leave you today without dropping one final tantalizing mystery that the lore docs only briefly hint at, and that the lore community is currently obsessing over. It's what everyone is calling the Char conundrum.
The timeline problem. This is a fascinating wrinkle in the lore. It's so good. Okay, so in the established Guild Wars universe, there's a wildly popular giant militaristic feline race known as the Char. But during this prequel era, 1,200 years ago, the Char were largely viewed by humans as these primitive, fragmented beasts living far away in the north.
Right.
They hadn't invaded the human kingdoms yet. Because of that, people were initially terrified that the Char wouldn't be a playable race in Guild Wars 3. But, and this is where it gets crazy, if you dig deep into the historical texts for this specific time frame, it aligns perfectly with a massive world-altering event.
The assassination of the Conner.
Yes.
The Conner being the supreme unifying leader of the Char. His assassination essentially destroyed their society and plunged their entire race into a vicious, bloody, multi-generational civil war.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over until the first beta drops in 2027. Could we see playable, pacifist Char clans who are fleeing that horrific northern bloodshed?
That would be amazing. Right. Imagine them traveling south to seek refuge in the politically volatile, human-dominated borders of Ancient Orr. Picture yourself playing as a massive feline refugee, trying to survive as a Veil Warden under a society of hoarding bureaucrats, all while your homeland burns in the north.
It would add an incredible layer of political nuance to a world that is already brimming with tension. You'd have native humans struggling against their own government, alongside refugees struggling just to find a place to exist.
It changes the entire dynamic of character creation. So there you have it. The complicated, breathtaking, and deeply flawed golden age of Ancient Orr.
It's going to be wild.
Just remember, as you're gliding through those pristine forests, using your momentum to crush enemies and marveling at the floating city of Era, enjoy it while it lasts. Because eventually that beautiful supermodel is going to turn back into your grumpy, rotting zombie neighbor.
A very sobering thought to end on, but an accurate one.
We wouldn't have it any other way. Keep questioning those official corporate docs, keep reading the subreddits, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.